Today on Notsam Wrestling, War Games takes shape. Full Gear is right around the corner. Heel turns galore on SmackDown, and so much more. This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling. It was such a big week in terms of news, both storyline and outside of storyline, whether it be, characters turning heel, turning face, whether it be cards being built for pay-per-views, whether it be TV deals being struck or shares being sold. We will get into all of it here on today's episode of Notsam Wrestling. But first, I want to follow up something that drew a little bit of controversy on last week's episode of Notsam Wrestling. And it's not really my controversy as much as it is a larger controversy that I guess I don't want to say unknowingly, but accidentally became a part of. I said last week that if Roman Reigns, that the only two people in front of Roman Reigns in terms of WWE championship reigns that he had to beat were Hulk Hogan and Bruno Sammartino, and that if Roman were to retain past WrestleMania, he would have to make it to September of 2024. And that would beat Hogan's record, and it would put only Bruno Sammartino in front of him. Now, I want to say that when I made that statement, I had just come off of Crown Jewel. That was last week, right? It's amazing. I mean, I have no idea. You could tell me that was last week. You could tell me that was 2 years ago. The amount of stuff that happens every 7 days. But the reason that I said that was because I had just heard it on commentary and I hadn't thought about it. Michael Cole said, just Hogan and Bruno Sammartino are in front of him. But I started getting comments immediately after the podcast was posted. What about Bob Backlund? What are you doing here, Roberts? What are we doing, a wrestling podcast? And we're just not going to acknowledge the legacy of Mr. Bob Backlund? I understand he's not everybody's favorite. I understand that even in his prime, he was an acquired taste. But come on, the guy had his run. And to those people, I would say, you're 100% right. And I apologize. But the conversation got so much deeper than how could Sam have forgotten to say that on his podcast? Because people started to get real conspiratorial. And the question started to come up whether this was a mistake that Michael Cole had made on commentary, which led to me making a mistake, or if it was a directive from WWE that Michael Cole said on commentary to sort of contextualize that this is where we are with the championship title run. So there is some debate as far as the Bob Backlund run and the amount of time that he held that title. So Bob Backlund won the WWE Championship, the WWF Championship, in February of 1978. He beat superstar Billy Graham. Bob Backlund was a Vince Sr. guy. And superstar Billy Graham was very quickly becoming one of, if not the most popular superstars across the industry. But Vince Sr. thought that his promotion needed a babyface champion. And at the time, the legend has it that superstar Billy Graham even said, just make me a babyface. And Vince Sr. could not see it. They said, nope, you're a heel. You're too outlandish, over the top. Tommy Dreamer was telling a story on Busted Open when I got to do the show with those guys last week. That was when superstar Billy Graham pitched, apparently, the first wrestling T-shirt. No, what if I had a T-shirt? What if there was a superstar Billy Graham T-shirt? You turn me into a babyface? No. We're going to go with Backlund. And so that not only did they go with Backlund and did Backlund take the title off of superstar Billy Graham, but it soured superstar Billy Graham on the whole thing. And of course they would have, meetings later when superstar Billy Graham donned a kung fu gimmick that was not the greatest thing in the world, but that's neither here nor there. So Bob Backlund becomes the face of the company in February of 1978. And I've been living under the sort of thought that he just had, a title run that was 4 years, 4 and change, and then, He dropped it to the Iron Sheik, who then dropped it to Hulk Hogan. But it is actually more complicated than that. And the complications are what's led people to wonder if there's a new WWE directive. So technically, in November of 1979, so just shy of 2 years with the title, right? Because he won it in February of 78. Bob Backlund lost in a title match to Antonio Inoki in Japan. And then a week later, Bob Backlund won the title back. So this was like the end of November 1979, he loses the title to Inoki in Japan. And then I want to say on December 6th or so, like very early in December, like a week or so later, he wins the title back from Antonio Inoki. But there's outside interference when he wins the title back. So the person who was called the president of the WWE in Japan at the time declared the match a no contest. And Antonio Inoki said, well, I will not accept the title under those terms. He's a competitor with honor. And so what happened was about 10 days after that, so in the middle of December in 1979, Bob Backlund faced Bobby Duncan Jr., Duncombe Jr., it auto-corrected my notes, in a match for the vacated WWE Championship. And that's how it was advertised, that this is going to declare the winner of this vacated title. Now, that seems pretty cut and dry. That, okay, then Bob Backlund has one title run that goes from February 78 to November 79, and another title run that goes December 79 to maybe December 83. Either way, but here's the problem. Bob, winning the vacated title, did so at a time when things like that would happen in specific markets, but they didn't acknowledge them outside of that market. So WWE as a national promotion never acknowledged Bob Backlund dropping the title. Locally, it might have been advertised that Bob Backlund and Bobby Duncombe was a match for the vacated title, but that would have been something that was just advertised locally. That was just to sell tickets in that market. Overall, it wasn't fully acknowledged. It goes even further because if you go through that list, Antonio Inoki has never been acknowledged by the WWE as having that week-long run as champion. So if Antonio Inoki, because the title was only vacated in the rematch, so if Antonio Inoki's first run as champion is never acknowledged by the WWE, then that means the context of the rematch is thrown out. So if you're splitting up Backlund's title run and saying it wasn't actually, whatever it was, February 78 to December 83, then 78, was that right? 78, whatever it was. Yeah, 5 years or so. Then if you're saying that that's not what we're doing, if Antonio Inoki isn't listed as a WWE champion, then how can you count that title being vacated? It goes further. In October of 1981, there was a storyline in New York where Greg the Hammer Valentine and Bob Backlund had a world title match. There was a dazed official who, in storyline, gave Greg the Hammer Valentine the victory and the world title. That title was stripped from Greg Valentine. They said Greg Valentine didn't win that title, but because of the referee's decision, it's now vacated. So once again, in October of 1981, Greg Valentine, or maybe it was in November of 1981, that they had the rematch. And the rematch in New York was advertised as Bob Backlund versus Greg Valentine for the vacated WWE Championship. However, that was only recognized in New York. So in that market, if you were buying tickets to Madison Square Garden, then yes, you saw the title as being vacated. But if not, no. I mean, and this was the way business was done way back when the WWF was the CWC, and they were a part of the NWA. Part of the big problem was that the NWA wanted Lou Thez, I believe, not Buddy Rogers, to be the world champion. Well, outside of New York, Buddy Rogers lost the title to Lou Thez. But when he got back to New York, they never acknowledged that he had lost the title. And they literally, that's how the WWE Championship was created. So the idea of acknowledging and not acknowledging just for specific markets is, a tale as old as time before professional wrestling goes completely national. Backlund, of course, would finally lose the title to the Iron Sheik in December of 1983. Iron Sheik would then drop it to Hulk Hogan a week or so later. Maybe a little more than a week, whatever it was. But his reign, Bob Backlund's reign, if you go to WWE.com, Bob Backlund's reign is listed as being 2,100 days long. That's more than Hogan's reign, and that's less than Bruno's reign, which clearly puts Roman Reigns today in fourth place. It goes Bruno, Backlund, Hogan, Reigns, which means that even if Reigns were to beat Hogan's record, he'd be beating Hogan's record. Yes, and that'd be a huge accomplishment. But he'd still have another year and a half before he could beat Backlund. And then, Bruno's run is impossible to duplicate. But you know the rules here at Notsam Wrestling. What's the Bible? What have I said 1,000 times? You can't go to WWE.com. You can't go to this. You can't go to that. You can't look at the history books because the history books are all mashugana. This guy was announced here. This was announced there. The Bible is the week-to-week television product. What is announced on television is the Bible. The fact is that as long as I've been watching WWE TV, Bob Backlund's title reign has been acknowledged as uninterrupted. In 1993, when that dude returned to the WWE after being away for like 9-10 years, whatever it was, the whole hook was, even though he didn't look like the most charismatic guy in the world, even though he was looked at as an old guy, which is wild, because he was in his early 40s at that time. He was younger than half the guys on the current roster. But the whole push was, you may not remember this guy. There's a lot of little kids watching who maybe it wasn't your era. But this guy held the title for years. This guy did things that nobody's ever done. 4 years, 5 years, whatever it was. That was the whole push behind Bob Backlund coming in as a babyface, which led to the match on WWE Superstars with Bret the Hitman Hart, where it was old generation versus new generation. And the whole thing was that Bret Hart was the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, the excellence of execution. He's been champion, whatever it was by then, at least twice, if not 3 times. But Bob Backlund had that run of all of those years. And it wasn't, Bob Backlund was never listed as a 2-time champion. And technically, by the rules of this, if you're going to list him as a 2-time champion, you'd have to list him as a 3-time champion. Because if you're going to count either of those times, whether it was vacated in the Valentine incident or it was vacated in the Inoki incident, you can't allow one of those to stand and one of them to not. If one of them stands, they both stand. In my life of watching WWE television, no matter what run, whether it was Bob Backlund's initial run in the early 80s, go back and watch the tapes. Whether it was Bob Backlund's return to the WWE in the early to mid 90s. Whether it was Bob Backlund coming back to make Darren Young great again. At no point in the history of Bob Backlund in the WWE has he been listed as a 3-time WWE champion. Hogan was called a 3-time WWE champion. Bret was people have been called 3-time WWE champions. Bob Backlund was never even hinted at being a 3-time WWE champion. Because if he's not the second longest reigning WWE champion ever, then he's a 3-time WWE champion. And he's never, ever, ever, ever been called a 3-time WWE champion. So unless they've decided to completely restructure and completely reinterpret, that's what this would be. This would be going into the Constitution and reinterpreting the amendments. That's happened before, by the way. The Constitution gets reinterpreted and reinterpreted and reinterpreted. But unless there is an official notification that we are reinterpreting our ledger, that we are reinterpreting our record of champions, and that today, as of right now, Bob Backlund is a 3-time WWE champion. Unless I hear that, then consider anything that I say, anything that Michael Cole says, anything that anyone says about Roman Reigns only having Hogan and Bruno in front of him to be a mistake. In my case, it was an error. It was a slip of the tongue. It was a careless mistake. I can't speak for anybody else. But unless I hear that Bob Backlund is a 3-time champion, I'm considering Bob Backlund the second longest title reign in the history of the WWE Championship. Now, speaking of history, one of the most anticipated matches, a match that people waited forever to return to WWE television, to return to television and to be brought to WWE television for the first time was, of course, War Games, the match Beyond, which became a staple of NXT, but Triple H, Papa H, has brought it to the main roster. And I think most of us figured that this year War Games would be kind of a team of all the super heels versus all the super baby faces, and that we'd be combining the Judgment Day and the Bloodline on one side. So much so that I think we all thought that this would be a sort of brand specific match just because of the way it's set up. But as it turns out, the way it's shaping up anyway, it looks like if we're getting a women's War Games match, which I wouldn't be shocked, at least one side looks like it's going to be all SmackDown. But what we know is we are getting a men's War Game match, and that it is going to be all Monday Night Raw superstars. And that's a shame, only because as good as Adam Pearce was at screaming War Games, we just hired a GM with a British accent. I really thought, okay, look, if we've got the women on SmackDown competing in a War Games match, then we do still have the opportunity to potentially hear Nick Aldis scream War Games in his British accent. But he's going to have to get some bass in that voice. Nick Aldis has kind of a very cool, calm demeanor, right? He's kind of soft-spoken in like a carry a big stick kind of a way. But he's going to have to find some grit if he's going to hit us with that War Games announcement. So as of now, we've got no Bloodline representation in that match. We've got no John Cena in that match. He's gone, obviously. We got no LA Knight in that match. But what we do have is on one side, basically the entire Judgment Day and their friends, obviously without Rhea Ripley, but we've got Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough, huge spot for JD, versus, an incredible collection of baby faces on Monday Night Raw, which is Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, and Cody Rhodes. So a couple of things there. We've got the heavyweight champion in a Judgment Day match, and we've got Cody Rhodes in his first, in a War Games match. We've got the heavyweight champion in a War Games match. And we got Cody Rhodes in his first War Games match, which is huge because his dad created the match. You could see the look on his face. The poster. As much as I'm sure Cody Rhodes never, ever wanted to wear face paint again, it was worth it to paint up in camo and come up looking like Apocalypse Now. Nose first above the water as he's ready to go to war. War Games. I actually thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool that they were able to build a match that made sense and had this kind of star power all on one brand. I think something's got to give in this thing because I think there is a fatigue setting in where every week Monday Night Raw is the babyfaces versus the Judgment Day. I think we got to have a major story beat happening coming off of this match. Something, it can't just be the good guys are triumphant. Now, there are a lot of rumors popping around about this match. Of course, we've seen multiple times on Monday Night Raw, Rhea Ripley has been in the ear of one Drew McIntyre. I think that part of War Games this year is that they've done a really good job with factions over the last year or so. And I think that we're going to see factions grow for the purpose of War Games. Do I think that we'll ever see Drew McIntyre as a full-time member of the Judgment Day? I personally don't. Stranger things have happened. I've seen a great meme on Facebook where Drew McIntyre's got emo makeup on. I don't personally think. Because realistically, aside from War Games season, expanding factions to 5 and more members, it starts to become overwhelming. There's not that much you can do with a faction that's this big. But I do think that we will get some alignment. I think that we'll get Drew. It seems like we're going to get Drew McIntyre in this match because traditionally it has been a 5-on-5. Now, we've done it a few ways in NXT and WWE. While traditionally 5-on-5 is the way it goes, it has been 4-on-4 before. It has been 3-on-3-on-3 before. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. It could stay to being 4-on-4. But if you add Drew McIntyre to the match, which I think that you will, because, why not? And you realize, man, there's even more star power being added to the match. Then you go, who's going to be the 5th person on the men's side? And of course, you could say Kevin Owens. But Kevin Owens, number one, already has a story on SmackDown now, right? He's got this story brewing with Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. And number two, you just brought him over to SmackDown. I understand that the rules of the draft have very often not been written in cement, but it feels a little like you got to give me some reason why Kevin Owens would just all of a sudden be okay to enter into this War Games match that is otherwise all members of the Raw roster and all people that have interacted with each other, right? We've watched Cody and Jay exchange the tag team championship back and forth with members of the Judgment Day. We've watched Sami Zayn and Damian Priest build this rivalry. We've seen the fact that Damian Priest is hunting down Seth Rollins. And even with Drew McIntyre is so fed up with Seth Rollins that the idea that he would then turn and join the Judgment Day so he could get his hands on Seth is not out of the realm of possibility. So if not Kevin Owens, who do you got, right? You could go down the Raw roster and go to a Bronson Reed or a whoever, right? There are guys that you could put in there to give the rub to. And maybe they could be in that spot where they're matched more with a JD McDonough, an up-and-comer, somebody who it's okay, this is going to be a real nice spotlight for them, or the rumors are true. Now, I think that there is a risk here, right? If they end up with 5-on-5 and Drew McIntyre is on one side and the men have a mystery partner, that could be a tough cookie because you're in Chicago. If you're announcing a mystery partner is coming to the babyface men's team of War Games and you're in Chicago, take off the devil mask, people are going to be chanting CM Punk in that building. And there's almost nobody that you could put in that spot that wouldn't, at that point, go even if it's awesome, it'd be well, it's awesome, but can you imagine if it had been CM Punk? Once you put CM Punk in people's heads, and that will be in people's heads if you leave it up as a mystery. There's a rumor floating around, which I was getting sent my way. People asking me, is it time? Can we fantasy book. Rumor is that Randy Orton may be joining the men's babyface War Games team. And that could go many different ways. If Randy Orton's going to come back as a good guy, obviously he's going to be put in there with either the Judgment Day or Drew McIntyre. He could cost Cody, you know what I mean? Something could go on where the same way he did with Edge at the Royal Rumble 2020, where it led to Randy Orton versus Edge. Maybe we're going to take Randy Orton versus Cody until we get to WrestleMania. Who knows? But what I won't do is fantasy book it because it is not time. Now, it did lead to an interesting conversation and I was tweeting about this and getting a lot of replies on it. And it was just, I enjoy when tweets can evoke a nice conversation. And the conversation was basically that people miss being surprised. Remember back in the day when you would be surprised when storylines like Randy Orton returning weren't being spoiled by the internet? And I would say the answer to that is no. No, I have literally no recollection of there being a time where that wasn't happening. I mean, since the internet has been around, these stories have gotten out. And before that, when people were just subscribing to newsletters, these stories got out. The idea that storylines leak now and they used to not leak is preposterous. It's just not true. Now, it's easier to find them now because people are just existing online all the time. But you could say that about a lot of things. That's just the way information is spread these days. But I was saying on Twitter, I mean, I remember being on AOL, and AOL was not an obscure thing. AOL was, if you weren't a big tech person, being on AOL was being online. You said the way people say that they have the internet is the way people said they had AOL. If you had the internet in the mid to late 90s, you had AOL. So I think that what I was saying was that, like, I knew Bret Hart was leaving WWE in 1997 before Survivor Series because I read it on AOL. When Brock Lesnar and Goldberg stepped into Madison Square Garden 20 years ago for WrestleMania 20, everybody knew that both of those guys were leaving the company. That's why they got booed out of the building. You don't remember "You Sold Out" chants raining down in the 90s on people that were leaving companies? How did all those fans know? Because they got a newsletter, because they read it online, or because word spread fast. Once one person read it in a newsletter, they'd go to school the next day and you'd talk about it on the playground. And not every surprise would get spoiled, but not every surprise gets spoiled now. I mean, if this Randy Orton thing happens and it is spoiled that Randy is returning for Survivor Series, how do you not acknowledge that he's literally been teased for every pay-per-view for the last 4 months? Almost since WrestleMania, I feel like. Probably since Money in the Bank. There have been rumors going into every pay-per-view that Randy Orton is ready to come back, that Randy Orton is going to return. We literally had to create a rule on the show that we don't fantasy book Randy Orton because Randy Orton leaks kept happening. The idea that this would be this big spoiler, what about all the times it wasn't true? Because that's the other thing, that as much information gets passed around right now, so much of it isn't true. That the one time it becomes true, it doesn't mean that, wrestling is ruined for everybody. So I just thought it was interesting. I just thought it was interesting. And I'm interested to see where this War Games thing goes. We have, on the women's side of War Games, a lot happening on SmackDown. It seems like there will be, unless there's going to be a traditional Survivor Series women's match at Survivor Series, I would think War Games is where we're headed, because we got real movement on the damage control front. Of course, when Kairi Sane returned to the WWE at Crown Jewel, a big deal was made out of the fact that Kairi Sane left the WWE after getting jumped by Bayley, and that she was back now with Io Sky. And that this damage control thing was very awkward. They acknowledged it again on SmackDown. Bayley played the video. of like, look, this happened. Let's acknowledge it. I'm sorry, whatever. And it was really, really interesting because Kairi Sane came out and joined Damage Control. But in a way where it's like, if Bayley's the leader of Damage Control, how did she not know Kairi Sane was a part of Damage Control? And she just kind of went along with it. So what I feel like we're seeing happen is, in the short term, Kairi Sane's joining Damage Control, which is great. But in the long term, they are doing this thing where they're almost shifting leadership to what is maybe Io Sky. It feels like Bayley is probably getting pushed out of Damage Control, which is a very interesting story. Because the story goes on, the main event of SmackDown is the 6-person tag match. It's Io, it's Bayley, it's Kairi Sane versus Sasha, Charlotte, and Asuka. A dream match until Asuka turns on Charlotte and Bianca. And we now have a 5-woman faction with Asuka joining Damage Control. And looking at Damage Control now, it is so cool. Everybody loved it. I think everybody's been waiting for Asuka to do something like this. I don't see how the babyfaces are going to get cheered going into this match. I don't see how Damage Control is not going to be the favorites. Like, it's going to be, you could try to make them a heel all you want, but it's like, having 5 of the coolest women on the roster all together that are doing stuff that we've never seen them done, but never seen before. I mean, think about what Io has done in War Games matches before. If that's what we're getting, oh my God. So the question is, who do they face? Obviously we've got Charlotte and Bianca. I believe it'll probably be 4-on-4 because I don't think Dakota is going to be in this match. I don't think Dakota is ready to wrestle. So I think we're going to get 4-on-4, which is always fine, by the way. The thing about War Games matches is they're very long. Even the Bloodline match last year was long. The finish was incredible, but the match was long. So I think that the idea of doing 4-on-4 is okay. It'll tighten things up. And it'll end up being Asuka, Io, Kairi, and Bayley, which is a banger of a team, versus Charlotte, Bianca. I feel like Shotzi would be in there. They've been doing a pretty significant job of building her up. And I've heard Becky Lynch's name thrown around. But again, I feel like this is a SmackDown match. The same way that the men's War Games match is a Raw match. I feel like this is a SmackDown match. And if I had to, because we've got on Raw, announced for the show, Rhea Ripley and Zoe Stark. So I'm looking right now. If you're watching me, I'm looking up the SmackDown women's division specifically because I'd like to say, okay, who do we get from SmackDown to be in this match? I go Bianca, Charlotte. I go Shotzi, and then as my 4th person, I mean, they haven't really done anything with Isla Dawn. I don't know if that would make any sense. They haven't really done anything with Mi Chin. I mean, Zelina Vega's all tied up with the LWO stuff. Maybe they have to bring in somebody from Raw. Unless it's going to be Mi Chin, but yeah, I feel like you're not going to get LWO involved because that's a whole other faction and they've got their own problems. Scarlett, it's not going to be Scarlett. Well, I mean, Mi Chin is part of a different faction too, so it probably won't be Mi Chin. Yeah, other than that, all you've got is Isla Dawn. I mean, B-Fab, I guess. They're not doing anything with B-Fab. Yeah, well, B-Fab's in the Bobby Lashley faction now, hypothetically, maybe, right? And Alba Fire. Unless they're going to build up Alba Fire to do something, they're probably going to have to go over to Raw. And maybe they do bring in Becky Lynch. I don't know. We'll see. But it'll be great. The other thing they are doing. And by the way, I hope going into this, they've been doing a lot of, and I talked about this a little bit last week, long-term storytelling has just been all over this place. And I think that coming out of Survivor Series as we go into the Royal Rumble, it is time to do a lot more short-term storytelling. I think that WWE is in this spot right now where they've done such a good job of building these characters up to the point where people care. And the reason that you know people care is because merch is good, live event tickets are good, ratings are good, like people are invested. And the only reason people are invested in this show is because they're invested in the characters. That's just the way professional wrestling works. And the only reason they're invested in the characters is because the stories are being told well. I do think that, like I said, that fatigue with the Judgment Day versus the good guys is setting in. And I do think that strong storytelling beats need to start getting fired up. I know that it wouldn't have worked based on where they were going. I understand that they were going to a War Games thing. So they needed the Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins to end how it was going to end. But I couldn't help but think, how great of a boost to everything would it have been if Sami Zayn won the world title? If Sami Zayn, just on this Raw, it wasn't even announced in advance, we decided we're going to do this match on Monday Night Raw, and Sami Zayn wins the title. Number one, it would be a refresh that I think a lot of people are waiting for in the Seth Rollins camp. Number two, it would give Sami Zayn that boost that a lot of people have been waiting for since February. And number three, it would give Raw this like injection of liveliness where you have to watch because like crazy stuff happens. Stuff that isn't forecast. Like it's good for some stuff to be forecasted weeks and weeks and weeks in advance. And then there's this giant payoff and it feels great. And that should happen with a lot of stuff. But it's also good for some decisions to be made where it's like, let's just boom, drop it on them right here. You never know what's going to happen. And that is one of those instances. And again, I understand. I'm not advocating. I'm not saying that it should have happened because then it would have made it very, very complicated to get into War Games. But I do think that stuff like that should be happening more. You know, it should be making you feel like not I'm watching because I want to, but now I'm watching because I have to. Because I think you're going to get more people that it's just going to heighten everything when people feel like they absolutely have to do it. Now, as we go into Survivor Series, I am a little bit worried. And the thing that worries me is this Miz versus Gunther match. Because we've now seen with the Miz and Gunther, with the Miz and Grayson Waller, I'm getting very concerned. Even the way he was wrestling in that four-way match on Raw, where the winner gets the shot at Gunther. And by the way, hope Ricochet heals up quickly and completely, because that's always scary, the concussion stuff. But I really, really hope that we're not seeing a full Miz babyface turn. Like, I really hope this is just situational, and by the time we're done with Survivor Series, Gunther wins, and the Miz is back up to his dastardly ways. Because I love the Miz. I think the Miz is a top tier heel, right? One of the greats. The Miz is incredible. The Miz was that guy you needed when it was like time to push LA Knight as a major babyface. The Miz was that guy that you needed to put him in the ring with to get the absolute best out of him. Because the Miz is, I mean, he's creme de la creme. But he's not a babyface. And he just never will be. So, and it's not because he's not good at it. It's just because he's too good as a heel. You just believe. Every fiber of his being, you believe. And while, yes, the things that he says to Gunther are true. The idea, well, you know, I can do this, but I can do that too. I haven't been here as long as I've been here by mistake. I haven't gotten the accolades that I've gotten to by mistake. I haven't reinvented the Intercontinental Championship by mistake. I didn't main event WrestleMania by mistake. It's all true. But he's reminded us of how good he is and how much he's gotten done so many times that I worry that he can't cash those chips in the way normally somebody could to fully turn babyface. Now, maybe he's not fully turning babyface. Maybe he's just doing this to build up to the Survivor Series. I hope that's the case. I'm fine with it if that's the case. But if it's not, I think long term, we could have a much bigger problem. I think Rey Mysterio's got a problem. I think Rey Mysterio's got a pretty big problem. I think if you look at what's gone on with Rey Mysterio, Rey Mysterio might not be that good of a guy. If we really analyze what this Rey Mysterio character is doing, and I'm the biggest Rey Mysterio fan in the world. I did a whole podcast a couple years ago about why that guy should have been on the cover of WWE 2K. I sang his praises up and down in the A&E biography of Rey Mysterio. I mean, he's for me, goated for life, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. One of my favorite matches, like literally Eddie versus Rey might be my favorite match ever. If not, it's top 3 ever, ever, ever. But all that said, this version of Rey Mysterio, this character, I feel like not a good guy. I feel like not a good guy, and he's pretending to be a good guy. I mean, if you start from the top of SmackDown this week, and the promo that he cut, saying Logan Paul couldn't beat him. Oh, he couldn't, he had the brass knuckles, otherwise he wouldn't have beat me. This is not what a hero says. This is not, John Cena would come out and go, you know what? It might not have been the most honest way, but he got the best of me. And I've got to know what, no. Rey was like, no, I deserve to still be the champion. And it's like, bro, you did lose the title. You did lose the title. The brass knuckles are the most old school villainous tactic I can possibly think of. And part of being a champion is being ready for all of that stuff. But whatever. He puts all the blame on Logan Paul. He takes no responsibility. I mean, think about it. His son calls him a deadbeat. And what does he end up doing? Dragging him to WrestleMania and beating him in the middle of the ring. I can't imagine. If my son got a match at WrestleMania, I'd be there was nothing that I would want in this world more than my son to win a match at WrestleMania. So the idea that I would beat him is so counterintuitive to anything that's in my nature. I don't understand it. And then he's in the ring with Santos, right? And Santos is this guy who worships Rey Mysterio. Every chance that Santos has gotten, he has sang the praises of Rey Mysterio. He had his own faction, Legado del Fantasma. His own faction. And Rey shows up, he goes, hey, my friends started this LWO faction 20 years ago, 30 years ago in WCW. Why don't I join your faction and we'll just call it my thing? And not only does Santos say, okay, sounds good, he gets the logo tattooed on his hand. Not on his arm where he can cover it with a sleeve, not on his butt where he can cover it with his underpants, not on his foot where he'll cover it with a boot, on his hand. He's got to wear gloves if he doesn't want people to see that thing. Santos Escobar had one of the biggest matches in his career at NXT Halloween Havoc. He wanted to show the world what he was capable of under the spotlight of the WWE. And what did he do to get that done? He literally wore Rey Mysterio's pants. His pants. Not only did he wear Rey's pants in his match, but he lost weight so he could fit in them. Rey Mysterio sent Santos Escobar his purple Phantom tights from WCW Halloween Havoc. And Santos lost like 10 or 15 pounds so he could squeeze into them and wear them on Halloween Havoc. That's how much this guy loves Rey Mysterio. And ever since, I want to say Backlash, which is like May of this year, months, he's been riding with this dude. When Rey Mysterio was the U.S. champion, everybody was like, Santos is going to turn on him. Santos wants that title. No, he did not turn on him. He was selfless. He was putting Rey Mysterio on that pedestal. He makes one little mistake. One teeny tiny mistake at Crown Jewel. It leads to the demise of Rey Mysterio. And what happens? The LWO is chilling in the ring. And Carlito, this dude who it's like, hey, bro, where did you come from? You weren't a part of this, right? Who even are you? I haven't seen you around in forever. shows up and he goes, hey, Rey, it wasn't even Logan Paul's fault. It was that guy's fault right there. Now, if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, Sam, that's your homie's fault. That dude sucks, am I right? I'm like, where have you been, dude? That guy's my ride or die. I'm sticking with him. I don't want to hear you. But instead, the new guy shows up and Rey's like, oh, yeah, that's true. What do you think, Santos? He doesn't defend Santos at all. He goes, good point, Carlito. I'm glad you showed up and started taking a big dump all over my boy. I'm glad you did that. And Santos is like, what the hell? And he walks out. Rey Mysterio walks out with him. Then we saw a sight that I can't believe we saw. 2023, we saw a match between Rey Mysterio and Bob Lashley. Seeing Rey Mysterio and Bob Lashley would have been awesome too. But Carlito and Bob Lashley. From the Ruthless Aggression era up until now, Carlito and Bob Lashley showing up and wrestling as if they're in their prime, and maybe they are in their prime. Right now, having a banger. Awesome. So fun to see that. But then Santos comes out and he's driven to the point where it's like, Rey, why are you doing this to me? Rey shoves him. And it's like, bro, at this point, what can I do? And finally, Santos snaps. But it wasn't his fault. If you break that thing down, line by line, bar for bar, word for word, it was not Santos's fault. That's all on Rey. Rey was a bad guy here. Rey was not cool. Now, I worry what kind of monster Dragon Lee is going to turn into. All I heard about was Dragon Lee's the next Rey Mysterio. Dragon Lee's getting advice from Rey Mysterio. I heard that on SmackDown after I saw all this. If I'm Dragon Lee's parents, I don't want my kid hanging out with Rey Mysterio. That's a bad influence. I don't want you to be like Rey. I want you to be like Santos. He had Rey's back. He has Rey's logo tattooed on his hand. He wore Rey's pants. That's who I want you to be like, not Rey. Right now. And this is one of the very few times I've ever seen Rey act in a way that I thought was less than honorable, but that's the way I saw it. When I saw those two, when I saw what happened between those two, I thought the angle was really great. I thought that the tension that was built, I thought that the way they stretched it out over multiple segments, I thought that the way clearly Santos didn't want to do it. Rey shoved him, but Rey didn't want to do it. I thought it was really, really cool. Forgive the interruption, but if you want to be the best gift giver in your family this holiday season, give the gift of disc plate. These disc plates, they're metal posters that take about 20 seconds to install. Look at this. And they won't, they're so big, they won't damage your house. They come with magnets that you stick to the wall. Then the disc plate sticks to the magnet. It's as easy as that, so you can switch them in and out all you want. See, I got one that's like a wrestling ring. It's inside a TV. It's classy. And look, can you hear it? It doesn't bend. The corners don't crease. It doesn't peel off your wall. You actually look like an adult with this thing. They have all kinds of licenses. You can get Star Wars. You can get Stranger Things, all the sports team you love. Displate has what you need to make this season bright and, let's be honest, classy. Save up to 30% when you click the link in the show notes below. Discounts will be automatically applied to your cart when you click the link. Use our code NOTSAM when you visit displate.com. That's displate.com, code NOTSAM, or click the link in our show notes. Another thing that I thought was really, really cool was checking out UFC 295, of course. TKO, owner of WWE and UFC and everything. Logan Paul sitting in the audience. And this is exactly why I thought that Logan Paul having a WWE championship was a great idea. You know, Logan Paul's in a very unique situation. For a long time, it has seemed like when WWE superstars get exposed to the mainstream, there are times where they kind of want to separate from the character that they portray in WWE because, you know, they want people to know that there's more to it than that. Logan Paul's in a unique situation because all people have known is the other side of Logan Paul. Logan wants them to see him as a WWE superstar. So he shows up to this kind of, I would call UFC mainstream event at this point, you know, a spot where celebrities are going to be. Donald Trump is there, Bill Burr is there, all these people. It's Los Angeles. It's a Los Angeles UFC show. And what does he do? Not only is he holding the United States Championship, he's got his phone up and it says, shout out to Dominic Mysterio. He's using his camera time on UFC to further everything going on with him and WWE right now and to associate himself as a WWE superstar. He came out with this quote that he's retired from boxing. He's a full-time WWE superstar. I loved it. I think that's great. And it leads me into talking about the business side of things. I told you we're not just going to talk about storyline today. A lot of news on the business side of things. I mean, really, really interesting. Different era that we're in. Vince McMahon, I guess they're saying selling like 8 million shares of his stock or something like that. Something close to a third of his stock or something like that he has in TKO, which is like, I mean, so much crazy, crazy money. But, you know, it really is a time. They're talking about how it looks like we're finally going to get sponsor logos on the WWE ring mat, which is something the WWE was always against under the Vince McMahon regime. Obviously, I'm okay with that because GCW's been doing that. And if you've seen a GCW show, you see a big Notsam logo in the top center of that ring most of the time. So, you know, I'd love to see if I can get a Notsam logo in a WWE ring. But it's just very interesting that as time goes on, we really are branching away from a Vince McMahon run WWE. But the business is still going nuts. NXT, this is a huge deal. NXT has signed a TV deal with the CW network. Now, this is amazing because to me, so the details, I believe, as I know them, are that they said on the investors call, the TKO investors call, that it's something like a 70% increase in rights fees, which I think is big because not only the fact that the money is going way, way up, but also that NXT is being treated like a separate entity, that NXT is getting its very own television deal, really shows you that this is not just an add-on. The NXT television show started as something that was on the WWE network, right? Well, I think in the very beginning it was on like Hulu only. And then it was on the WWE network. And it was almost like a bonus, right? Like subscribe to the WWE network, you'll get the NXT television show every single week. The takeovers, it was like the first takeover was, let's see if a live telecast will even work on this thing before we go right to WrestleMania. And then it was like, let's get it on the USA network. And it almost became added value for the USA network. They paid for it, but it was part of the package, right? It was part of a bigger WWE package. Now, NXT has separated themselves and made themselves such a brand on their own that they've got their own TV deal. They're going to the CW. They signed a 5-year deal. And you're going to tune into network television, the CW, to watch NXT every week. And they're saying live, I believe. Live every week. Presumably still on Tuesdays, but who really knows? This will take effect October 2024, the same time that SmackDown moves over to USA. And Raw, we don't know where it's going yet. But isn't that amazing? SmackDown, NXT, and Raw, 3 completely separate TV deals, 3 completely separate TV negotiations. You've got Peacock, which has the WWE library as well as premium live events. You've got CW that's got NXT. You've got USA that's got SmackDown. You've got A&E that's got WWE rivals, biographies, you know, all the docs. And then you've got some other additional entity that has Raw. And that's only in America. I mean, the way they have figured out how to monetize this thing is absolutely incredible. Hopefully, we'll end up seeing NXT go on the road because of this. You know, now NXT is at a spot, and I don't know how much it costs to put on that show every single week, but if they're in a spot where they're making money, and clearly they're at least bringing in more money, hopefully we see what that looks like. And I don't know if that means they'll go on the road every single week. I don't know if that means they'll just find a different venue that's a bigger venue, maybe locally, that they can put the show on. But it seems like if you are drawing a significant rating every week, which they are, and that's why they got the CW TV deal, if you've got a loyal fan base, which they absolutely have, and people watching week to week, which they absolutely have, you are making the investment in the product, which they are, just from a talent perspective, sending main roster talent to NXT on a regular basis. And you've got all, regular premium live events now where you're putting 5,000 or more people into a building to watch these shows. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of next year we see NXT grow exponentially. Now, I think it is key that they keep one foot into the talent developmental area, which they've been doing, which is why I don't know if going on the road every single week for television is the move. But I do think that a change of scenery wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for NXT. But hey, man, it's working. It's working. And it's also interesting that the CW clearly wanted a wrestling show, that you kept hearing rumors that wrestling shows were getting courted. There were rumors that the NWA was going over to the CW. And then I don't know, because there was a controversial spot on their pay-per-view, which if that did cost them the CW deal, that would be a real bummer because it was not worth it. There's rumors that it still might end up on the CW app, that it's not going to be on the channel, it'll be on the app, which, I mean, I guess if they're paying for it to be on the app, I guess that's better than nothing, but it's certainly not the same as being on television. But I'm really excited for NXT. I mean, to watch this brand grow and grow and grow, especially since it had to start from scratch, basically, is a really cool thing. And then, of course, we got Full Gear. AEW hitting us with Full Gear on Saturday. Very solid card so far. I'm assuming we'll get, we've got 9 matches announced, including 1 on the pre-show. So I would imagine, since it's AEW, we'll probably get another, 2 matches, 1 to 2. So you got 8 matches announced for the main show. We'll probably get another 2 matches announced for the main show. Maybe we'll get 4 more matches, 13 matches total. That sounds about right. Probably get 2 more pre-show matches and 2 more main show matches. But so on the pre-show, you've got MJF and a mystery partner defending the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship against Austin and Colton Gunn. I'm assuming this is going to end up being Samoa Joe, although it might be good. Okay, actually, how I might play it is I would say have MJ, because I think it's time for MJF to drop the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship. I would have it be a different partner, whoever it is, I don't know. Maybe somebody in a devil mask comes out. Maybe something happens where MJF gets screwed, loses. The Guns win the Tag Team Championship. So in the pre-show, I have the Guns win the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship. And that is the final straw. That's the moment after losing the Ring of Honor Tag Team title because his partner got attacked by the devil, where CM Punk goes to Samoa Joe and finally says, okay, I need you to have my back. And Samoa Joe's got his back for the main event with Jay White for the AEW title. Now, you may not even have to get the devil involved, because you could just have Juice Robinson and Jay White at ringside being too much. But none of that happens if Samoa Joe is the partner. So either MJF has to decide before, you know what, I can't take on the Bullet Club, I better have Samoa Joe by my side, and they retain the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship, and then he's got his back in the main event, or he loses on the pre-show, realizes he needs Joe, and then Joe's got his back in the main event. Hikaru Shida versus Timeless Toni Storm, AEW Women's World Championship. This feels very like, I don't know, man. As big of a fan of The Fiend as I was, I thought putting him in the world title conversation was a mistake. Because where do you go from there? You don't want him to lose, but you also don't want him to be in a position where he's got to defend the title and possibly lose, or have to just beat every main event guy. I don't want Toni Storm to lose, but I don't think she should be the champion. As of today, that could change. But although I could probably see her losing and going even crazier, so that could probably be okay. Sting, Darby Allin, and Adam Copeland with Ric Flair versus Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne. It could be interesting if Adam turns on Sting and Darby, and then Christian doesn't accept him. Like, Adam turns on him, and then Christian won't accept him. And now Adam is a man on an island. I don't know where you go from there, though, so maybe not. Orange Cassidy versus John Moxley for the International Championship. I guess this is where Mox gets his title back. I don't know. Hangman Page versus Swerve. Texas Death Match. I would say Swerve. It's Swerve's time. I want to see Swerve get in that main event scene. The Golden Jets versus the Young Bucks. This was the one where the match was made because they were just bickering over who could beat who. If the Golden Jets win, then they get the Young Bucks tag team title opportunity. And if the Young Bucks win, the Golden Jets have to break up. I mean, I would think that the Golden Jets should win, because why would they break up already? But it would certainly make the Young Bucks look like idiots if they lost. And then what? The AEW Tag Team Champions are Big Bill and Ricky Starks, unless, so the Fatal 4-Way for the AEW Tag Team Championship is Ricky Starks and Big Bill versus La Facción Ingobernable versus FTR versus Kings of the Black Throne, Malachi and Brody King. I probably have Malachi and Brody win because I'm a big fan of those guys. And then maybe have the Golden Jets win. Maybe the Golden Jets lose to Brody and Malachi. And now the Young Bucks have to beat the team that beat them, maybe. TBS Championship 3-way, Chris Statlander. Oh, it says 3-way, but there's... Chris Statlander, Julia Hart, and then Red Velvet or Sky Blue. Either way, Chris Stat... this might be the one Julia Hart wins, to tell you the truth. I could see Julia Hart... Although, yeah, the Sky Blue thing... I would think Sky Blue will win because she's been affected by the mist. Julia Hart beats Sky Blue. She becomes the champion. Chris Statlander chases Julia Hart. And then MJF versus Jay White. I see MJF winning with the help of Samoa Joe and the Devil revealing himself, which has to happen, right? I mean, we got to see it. So we'll see what happens. It'll be a good show. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to reading some of these emails. Email us, notsamwrestling@gmail.com. That's notsamwrestling@gmail.com if you'd like to be a part of the podcast. Always great hearing from all you guys. We've had some great emails coming. Spencer says, what's going on, Sam? I hope you and the family are doing great. We are doing great. Thank you. Once again, I'm writing to the best wrestling podcast in history. I would agree with that statement. I recently went to the live event in Johnson City, Tennessee, and my girlfriend and I had a blast. It was our first ever and my first live event since CM Punk was WWE champion. My question for you is, does WWE use a smaller ring for house shows now? The last time I saw it, it looked like they had a standard TV ring. On Saturday, however, it looked significantly smaller. No, I think it looks smaller because they don't have the big LED corner posts. It's the same size ring, but the corner posts are huge when they have the LEDs. But those are literally just giant LED things that cover the standard corner posts that they already have. So the ring has always been the ring. The corner posts make the TV ring look bigger, but that's also why, and you'll probably notice this at War Games, because there'll be the cage, although it'll be a double ring, might be tougher to tell. But when they have a cage and they have to put it over the ring, they use the standard posts, and they're it makes the ring look smaller for sure. So I think that's probably what it is. David from Austin, Massachusetts. Dear Mr. Brand Muffins, thank you for consistently making my drives to and from work far more tolerable. Keep pumping out content. I always will. Make sure you check out the interview that we did with Megan Morant. It's on the podcast feed. It's on the Not Sam Wrestling YouTube channel. It was incredible. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. You do such a great job of helping us wildly speculate. I think it's a great service. I think it needs to be done. Do you have any knowledge on what the plan is with what was once NXT UK? Is there going to be a rebirth, or did they decide to scrap it and take some of their top stars and just relocate them to other WWE programming? I think the goal is still to launch NXT UK again. I think that NXT UK was launched at a time when the UK indie scene was white hot. It's not white hot right now. There's still a lot of talented people over there. But I do think that the goal is to bring it back. And I think running shows in the UK, I think running shows in Germany, I think the international premium live event stuff is only going to help that cause. But I do believe that guys like Hunter and Sean would love to bring NXT UK back, especially now that NXT has become such a huge success. My pal Latoya, Sam, love the podcast as always. Helps me on a long commute. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I have one comment or observation and one question. First, I love how WWE always makes sure you are paying attention to absolutely everything backstage because there are always clues as to what may happen in the near future. Yes, always watch the product. That's where we get all this information from Drew McIntyre and Rhea Ripley. After your incredibly inspiring and insightful interview with Megan Morant, I just brought that up. My question is, who past or present would be your dream interview that you haven't done? Keep up the amazing work. I mean, there are still a lot of people that I would love to sit down and have a real, I feel like the interviews that I've done in the last year and a half have sometimes been different. That's why I don't do as many interviews as I used to do. But the real sit-down interviews, on my YouTube, on the Notsam Wrestling YouTube page, there's a collection of interviews called The Essentials. It's MJF, Shawn Michaels, Cody Rhodes, and John Cena. Those interviews, I feel like, are way far better than any interview that I've done in the past. So with that in mind, there's a lot of people that I have interviewed that I would love another shot at in a different context to get an Essentials interview out of them. I would love to either fly to Austin, Texas, or have The Undertaker come to the Notsam studio and sit with The Undertaker for a considerable amount of time to really have a nice, long, career-encompassing interview. I'd love to talk to Adam Copeland and have a nice career-encompassing interview with him. Vince McMahon is somebody that I'd love to sit for an extended period of time with and really, unpack everything with. There are a lot of people actually on that list that I'd like to maybe interview for the first time, maybe re-interview, because I feel like we've only scratched the surface with a lot of people. But I appreciate what you said about the Megan Morant interview. Rory from Australia writes in, great idea to book a Randy Orton return. Oh, not really. Oh, Rory, you sneaky. But was wondering, any chance at all we get you over here to Perth, Australia for a live show around the Elimination Chamber? Going to be lots of Aussies here who love to watch the product and speculate wildly. I've said it once. I've said it 1,000 times. You've clearly got my email address. Find me a venue. You find me a venue that'll put me on a Qantas flight, and I will be there with bells on. You don't understand. I love your country. I love Australia. I've been there once. I got to see Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide, and I absolutely adore it over there. I would absolutely make that incredibly long flight all the way to Australia just to do a live podcast and hang with you Australian fans. I just need somebody to pay for it. If you can find somebody to pay for it, somebody that'll sponsor me going out there with bells on, I would love to do it. Okay. Papa writes in, I was wondering, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? Odd that you ask. Every day. 2, how often do you casually rewatch the Undertaker HBK promo running up that hill, aka the GOAT promo? Especially after that song got re-famous after Stranger Things. I mean, I would say probably 12 to 15 times a year. And 3, what was the last time you shed a tear watching pro wrestling? Mine was the All In ending. All In didn't get me. Shed a tear. I don't know, man. I definitely get in the feels just when stuff clicks. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I got pretty emo at Royal Rumble when Sami Zayn turned on the Bloodline. That was a pretty emo moment for me, I would think. I don't know if I shed a tear, but Nicholas writes in, morning, boss. Thanks for the video in advance. So Bowens was tossed through glass last Wednesday. Yes, cry me a river. If not CM Punk, it's Jack Perry under the mask. Nowhere to be seen since All In. and has a history with MJF regarding the 4 pillars. If it's Jack Perry, dude, I'm not. I know there were people that were like, it doesn't make any sense that it would be Swerve, and maybe it doesn't. I just wanted an excuse to get him into that sort of main event picture. But like, I mean, it could be Jack Perry, but I don't think people would, especially because there are so many people that are like fantasizing about it being CM Punk, that the opposite of that would be Jack Perry. So, but I did get the glass thing, and I think a lot of people did. And if they didn't realize that people were going to think of CM Punk and Jack Perry when they did the glass, that's a problem. Shamo writes in, you think Shade Cargill will be the 4th woman on Team Bianca Belair for War Games? Not really. I don't. Because it won't be all about Jade then, you know? I mean, when you've got... that match to me is more about putting a bunch of star power on the babyface team and really the sort of coming out party for the combination of what was the Kabuki Warriors and Damage Control becoming one monster unit. I just don't think it's the appropriate time for a Jade Cargill debut, to tell you the truth. Jonathan writes in, gonna make this quick. Clearly, the obvious guess is Becky is the mystery partner. That was the same thing. But who would we be if we didn't at least wildly speculate that it's going to be Sasha for as long as we can? Look, Sasha Banks to me would be incredible. I don't believe that they're anywhere near getting that done, but my God, you want a reaction? That would be your reaction. Sam writes in, Beard's been looking great lately. I don't know. I'm not, I don't have the best. I have the best podcast there is. There are better beards. Do you think, here's the questions. Do you think it would help the Money in the Bank briefcase lore moving forward if the briefcase holder isn't eligible to cash in the briefcase until they defend a briefcase a certain amount of times? No, that's totally dumb, because why would you try to win the Money in the Bank briefcase? Like, I would never even consider entering the ladder match. I would just try to get a match with the briefcase holder later. Defending the Money in the Bank briefcase is the dumbest thing in the world. It makes no sense because it completely devalues the fact that you were just in an 8-person ladder match. And this guy's just got to beat one guy in a regular match to get the briefcase. It makes no sense. 2, do you think comparing each Roman Reigns Supermatch milestone to other historical milestones such as Hogan deflates or misplaces the hype leading into each Reigns match? No, I think that each Reigns, if you're only going to have a handful of, think about it. This year, we got Roman at the Royal Rumble. We got Roman at Elimination Chamber. We got Roman night 2 of WrestleMania. We didn't get him at Backlash. I don't believe we got him again until SummerSlam. We got him at Money in the Bank. We've had like 6 Roman Reigns matches all year. 6 matches. Cody's had like 700. We've had 6 Roman Reigns matches. If you're going to wrestle, if you're going to be the champion, that is now, and he's not booked, we probably are only going to get one more Roman Reigns match within the calendar year. If you're going to wrestle 7 times a year and you are going to be the champion, each match should have that heightened level of hype. There is no way. That's part of the deal. And if you're going to have a match that doesn't live up to that hype, people deserve to be able to tell you that they're disappointed. I think that if you're only going to wrestle a short number of times and you're going to make it special, people deserve to think that it should be special. I think it's totally fair. And number 3, would you bring Lesnar back to feud with Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship? Absolutely not. I've already seen it. I mean, I don't need to see Seth Rollins beat Brock Lesnar again. And I don't care if I don't need to see Brock Lesnar with the title again. So I don't know what good that would do anybody. Andrew writes in, I bought 2 tickets to WrestleMania 40 in Philly next year. My wife wants me to sell the tickets because finances are tight right now. So I'm debating what to do. Should I sell my WrestleMania 40 tickets? How good do you think the show will be? I'm not trying to get you in trouble with your wife, dude. I know what you want me to tell you. And I'm going to tell you that. WrestleMania 40 is going to be so lit. I don't want you to get in trouble with your wife. And I don't want your family to go without. What I would tell you is, get another job. And I don't mean quit your job and get a new one. I mean get a second job. I mean, figure out how to make it work. Find a new income source. Find a new revenue stream. And keep the WrestleMania tickets. WrestleMania 38 was awesome. WrestleMania 39 was awesome. I can't imagine, especially the year that we've had creatively, I can't imagine WrestleMania 40 is not going to be sick. I wish I could tell you otherwise. Find another revenue stream. Usman writes in, thank you for the podcast. I'm a lifelong wrestling fan. Your show has sharpened my ability to discuss the product. If you're going to watch the product, you got to be able to also discuss the product. I wanted to write you about how WWE can best use CM Punk. Oh, you're going to tell me how WWE can best use CM Punk. Because I'm pretty sure I already told you. But okay. This is how I would book him through WrestleMania. Oh, this is Usman, don't get mad at me. Usman, you're the one writing in. I need to be able to be critical of this. If you're going to write in, if I like it, I'll tell you. I believe that I will. And by the way, I should pretend to like it even if I don't like it just to put myself over. Because you're saying that my show has sharpened your ability to discuss the product, which means if I don't like how you discuss the product, it is my fault. But I got to be honest. That's the only thing I know how to do. Here's what Usman says. In the lead up to Survivor Series, Grayson Waller begins to advertise the Waller effect for Survivor Series. We're 2 weeks away. 2 weeks from Survivor Series. We got 2 SmackDowns. He'll say things like his guest is the best in the world and makes people go to sleep and causes people to fear for their lives. Well, you can't say he makes people go to sleep. That's not a compliment. Unless you're just like, it's CM Punk. Like, otherwise, at Survivor Series, Punk comes out as Waller's guest. Okay. Punk cuts a fantastic promo about where he's been, alludes to the recent AEW conflicts, okay, and explains why he's back in WWE. I imagine it'll be very similar to his first AEW promo, which would be incredibly ironic, okay. Does he acknowledge the fact that in his AEW promo, he talked about how much he didn't want to be in WWE, or are we erasing that? Next night on Raw, Waller cuts a promo where he states he felt he was in real danger and that he feared for his life. I don't know if they're going to take that shot. It's funny. I'm not saying it's not funny. This leads to Punk once again attacking Waller and is followed by a series of popcorn matches against Waller in Theory and the likes. Easy matches where the crowd would just be happy to see Punk back. Popcorn matches are matches that you don't watch because you go in and get popcorn. The first match back from, historically, the popcorn match is the first match back from intermission where people are still on the popcorn line and it's okay that they miss it. They realize that not everybody's going to get to see it. You can't say, I'm going to bring CM Punk back and the first thing I'm going to do is put him in popcorn matches. In 2023, shows shouldn't even have popcorn matches. They should not have premium live events that have popcorn matches. So that's ridiculous. Fast forward to the Royal Rumble. Okay, so throughout December and January, CM Punk is in popcorn matches with Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. Punk is an entrant in the match and has a standoff with KO. Punk ends up eliminating KO, which leads to a WrestleMania build between the two. I believe these two are perfect opponents for Mania. Punk can say that without him opening the door first, a guy like KO would never have gotten an opportunity in the WWE. KO can come back at Punk for walking out of the business, while people like him ushered in one of the greatest eras in pro wrestling. At WrestleMania, the two have a very entertaining match where ultimately KO defeats Punk by pinfall. The two shake hands, and Punk puts KO over after the match. I would love to... This is dumb. There's so much wasted time here. If you want to do Punk versus KO, why don't you just have KO go to the ring, like, after Elimination Chamber, like 2 weeks before WrestleMania. If you want to do Punk versus KO, 2 weeks before WrestleMania, you have not even mentioned Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. Fans are starting to get upset that Kevin Owens doesn't appear to be booked at WrestleMania. 2 weeks before WrestleMania, Kevin Owens comes out and he goes, I don't understand what's going on here. At WrestleMania 38, I had what I thought would be the biggest moment in my career. I wrestled the Texas Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I gave him the fight of his life. That was until WrestleMania 39, where I had another moment of a lifetime where me and my best friend main evented WrestleMania by winning the tag team championship. And now I get to WrestleMania 40. And I feel like I don't have that moment. How does that happen? How have I fallen from grace thus so far? Do I need to issue an open challenge? And immediately when he says that, we hear, and that's when Punk comes out. Boom. We're off to the races. 2 weeks before WrestleMania, Punk comes up on SmackDown out of nowhere and goes, if you're issuing an open challenge, I'm there. Then the next week, Punk can come out and cut his promo. Kevin Owens can, and where he's like, I'm back, blah, blah, blah. That's when Kevin Owens can interrupt it, and the two can have a war of words. Now we go to WrestleMania, and we actually see CM Punk versus Kevin Owens. 3 weeks, and we're there. There is no reason to have a weird Grayson Waller effect at Survivor Series, to have 2 months of popcorn matches, to have a predictable Royal Rumble thing, only to spend 2 months building Kevin Owens and CM Punk. Why? Why do all that? What money is there in any of that? Why don't you have people tuning into WrestleMania because they want to see CM Punk in the ring for the first time? That's the move for me, if that's what you want to do. Ross writes, so keep listening, Usman. Keep listening. I'm not saying that's a bad match. I'm saying to get there, you've wasted incredible amounts of time. Ross writes in, Sam, love waking up Monday mornings, starting my drive with your pod. I've been seeing some incredible reels inside the Sphere. Is it possible for a WWE event? Okay, the Sphere, what are your thoughts and speculations, please? I've thought about that too. The Sphere is the new venue in Las Vegas that looks absolutely incredible. U2 has a residency there right now. Like the whole, it's like a globe. It sits, 15,000 people. It's an arena. But all the walls are video screens. So you can create a fully immersive experience. And it would be incredible. The problem is that it's like theater style seating. It's not arena style seating, meaning that the ring would have to be up against the wall. And we're theatrically looking down, meaning one side of the ring will have no audience there. Which is not the worst thing in the world, but it would on television. It'd be an amazing live experience, but on television, you'd run the risk of it feeling like the Thunderdome because the audience would all be on the hard cam side. And the screen would be on the other side. It'd be tough to shoot unless you did it from an angle where it's like half of it is the audience and the other half is the video screen. I don't know. I just wouldn't want it to look like the Thunderdome is my only concern. But it'd be an amazing live event experience, I think. Jonathan writes in, I know you like short emails. I love short emails. I'm relatively new to this wrestling fandom. I love that. So this may be a dumb question. What is the kayfabe explanation for why tag team partners are allowed, seemingly randomly, to break up a pin attempt when they haven't been tagged in? I see this in a lot of tag matches and have learned to expect someone's partner come flying in. I love that you're asking this. And I love that as a guy who's only been a wrestling fan for a short period of time, you're a big enough fan that you're listening to podcasts like this. I think it's a great question. First of all, officiating in tag team matches needs work. It's preposterous at times. But theoretically, both partners are allowed to be in the ring for a 5 count. You're not supposed to touch the other opponent, but referees let things slide because they don't want every single match to end in a disqualification. And you do have, after you make the tag, you're allowed 5 seconds before you have to get out of the ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, get out of here, get out of here. So I guess technically, but if you haven't made the tag, you should not be flying in. It's not allowed. But it's not if that were a disqualification, everybody would be getting disqualified. So that would be kayfabe, the officiant's leniency, I think is what you would mark that up as. Let's see. We'll do a couple more. Maybe 1 or 2 more. This is from Chris. I've convinced myself an ECW one-night stand premium live event in 2024 could actually work. if each ECW original were to work with the current day talent. Come on, dude. I don't think so. He's going Dudley Boys versus KO and Sammy, RVD versus Logan Paul, Rhino versus Solo Sikoa, Tommy Dreamer versus Gunther, BWO versus New Day. Dude, like, yeah, 10 years ago. I love it, more than 10 years. I love ECW. I'm the biggest ECW fan in the world. But, I don't think anybody wants to see that show now. Time has passed, it's just not the same. You can't keep that magic forever. Time moves on. I would recommend everybody go and watch the original ECW One Night Stand, watch original ECW tapes. And that's it. And build these fantasy cards. But no, they could not do an ECW One Night Stand now. Stu writes in, what do you think Solo and Owens added to War Games match? Makes no sense whatsoever. None. They're on different brands. They're not part of those factions. It makes Kevin Owens and the Bloodline aren't even feuding right now. Kevin Owens is feuding with somebody else. Solo Sikoa is feuding with somebody else. Bloodline has problems with like LA Knight and people. No, it makes no sense. CM Punk returns to WWE at War Games, ends of show, gets involved with Solo, setting up Roman versus Punk at Rumble. Punk beats Roman. Cody wins the Rumble again. Beats Punk at Mania 40 to finish the story. That's hideous, dude. Roman versus Rock at WrestleMania 40. This would create a scenario in which someone could believe The Rock could win, but not. Nobody would believe that. Roman with the title. I got you. Roman with the title has to win, but without he could lose. No. Remember WrestleMania 28? No one thought Rock would beat Cena, and he did, just like no one thought Cena would win at WrestleMania 29. Yeah, but at WrestleMania 29, Rock had the title. So, I don't know. No. If you're going to do Roman versus Rock, you leave the title on Roman. Like, the idea that you do Roman versus The Rock 2 months after Roman already lost the title to CM Punk. Like, Roman's not the tribal chief anymore. So you're saying that the bloodline is kind of already fallen apart. That assuming Solo's team loses, Solo doesn't get revenge on Punk. It goes right to Roman. Then Punk beats Roman and moves on completely. And what? The Rock just shows up and goes, hey, I'm mad at you for losing, so now I'm going to beat you up? You could do, if you can, first of all, the actor strike is over, unfortunately, so we're probably not going to get the Rock at Mania. But if you were going to do it, you would lead the title on Roman. Rock versus Roman is the biggest match on the show. It has the title. You guys all have to deal with that. If you have The Rock, he is fighting Roman Reigns for the title. It's the biggest match on the show. And then you do Cody versus Punk as a way to be like, okay, we're not going to get Cody to finish the story. Roman's going to keep the title. At least we're getting Cody versus Punk. If you have CM Punk versus Roman Reigns, I think the best thing you can do is do Rock versus Roman for the title at WrestleMania. Cody versus Punk at WrestleMania. Cody versus Roman to finish the story at SummerSlam, knowing Roman is very close to beating Hogan's record. And then Cody beats Roman. Not only does he get to finish the story, but he stops Roman from getting Hogan's record. That's, to me, the no-brainer. But everybody's locked on this, like, has to happen at WrestleMania thing. No. Punk beating Roman at Royal Rumble would be insane. All right, last one. Avik. The streak continues if you get, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm going to do it. I feel mean. I'm going to do one more after this, though, because that's obnoxious. 4-0, he writes in. You just figured out the timing, dude. Cena's currently losing a lot on TV. Yep. He then wins the chamber, wins the championship, number 17 at Mania against heel Drew, for argument's sake. Has an open challenge on Raw. Balor then accepts. While Balor is down, Damian cashes in. No, it's all dumb. No. That's so complicated. Josh writes in, I've always wondered how Mike Tyson was able to count the 1, 2, 3 and give Austin the title win over HBK at Mania 14. Don't get me wrong, I'm the biggest Stone Cold fan and went nuts when he won. Thinking back on it, how did the pinfall count? There was an actual referee for the match, with Tyson being the special enforcer to keep the peace. Maybe I'm overthinking. Either way, I'd love to hear your take on it. Mike Tyson was a special enforcer referee. He was an officiant in the match. So with the referee down, Mike Tyson could jump in and enforce the rules. That's what he's enforcing, the rules of the match. The special enforcer's job is to make sure that the rules of the match are specially enforced. In this case, the pinfall had to be counted, so here's Mike Tyson. Also, watching the match, knowing HBK had an actual broken back, it's impressive that he was able to perform. Yeah. Finally, I would like to hear your Mount Rushmore of, just kidding. Good. I enjoy the podcast, and my Monday morning dog walks are a little longer now, so I can listen to the newest episode of the podcast. Well, good, Josh, and I'm glad for the dog's sake as well. I appreciate you guys all tuning in. If I didn't get to your emails, okay, how about this one? Devil Mask from Max. Oh, Friedman? Sam, I was wanting to pitch an alternative plan for Britt being revealed as the devil. I think, I brought up Britt. I'm not going to do this. I feel mean. I think Adam coming out to ringside at Full Gear wouldn't make a lot of sense, as Max is finding a sub for Adam on the Full Gear pre-show. My thought, unless he's the devil, in which case he was lying to Max about being out, but I think Adam's out for a while. My thought is instead that the devil pops out under the ring, interferes in the match, making Jay lose, then leaves the ring quickly to follow this up on TV with pay-per-views, where they start to discuss the motives a bit more. This would lead to the segment that you described at World's End or Winter is Coming, which will inevitably be heel Adam Cole taking the belt off Max. I mean, that devil has to take his mask off, or her mask off. We ain't stretching this out until the end of the year. It's enough already. It's enough. Guys, I would keep reading emails, but I feel like I'm only getting crankier, so it's better that we stop the emails here. I appreciate you listening or watching the podcast every week. If you're listening on Apple, make sure you leave a review and a rating. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a rating. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, hit like on the video. And if you're not watching on YouTube, still subscribe to the channel, start watching the videos we're putting out. And we'll see you again soon right here on Notsam Wrestling. Thank you, everybody.